So my name's Titus Brown. I'm an assistant professor at Michigan State University.
My name's Caitlin Thaney. I am the director of a new project at Mozilla, Think Firefox.
My name's Greg Wilson. I work for the Mozilla Foundation.
I think there's a growing recognition in biology that as we enter the age of sort of data-intensive biology, where data is relatively easy to acquire, share, reuse, find at least online, if not necessarily reuse, that biology is suffering from a lack of training. That is, most biologists don't ever get any sort of computational training in either programming or data use and reuse or reproducibility, that kind of thing.
There are no standards for computing work in science. There is no shared understanding of what we ought to do.
So there's a group of us out there that have been attempting to teach in a variety of different ways how to use computing in computation in biology. And we all have different approaches. None of us know how well what we're doing works. We're all doing slightly different things, and we'd like to learn from each other.
We're still finding that a lot of the practices within academic research are rooted in analog practices. And we're finding that because of some of those behaviors that have been passed down from generation to generation, it's keeping us from necessarily having the skills to interact as in a digital world in this capacity, to really advance discovery in the way that we should, and the ability to create and use tools and get those into the hands of researchers, and also just start to reward those different components such as data or code that are really important and milestones to be able to share within the scientific community. So addressing that gap, there are programs like one that comes under the Mozilla Science Lab called Software Carpentry, which teaches over a 2-day span technical skills to researchers across many different disciplines, but they do it sort of outside of the traditional walls of academia.
So we run a series of intensive 2-day workshops. We go to where the scientists are, we teach them a few basic skills. We're trying to give them the computing equivalent of hang a door, put up some drywall, maybe fix a flight of stairs. And it turns out that 2 or 3 days of training can make about, depending on whose numbers you trust, about a day a week difference for the rest of their lives.
This workshop is really about how we can get in front of biologists and researchers the skills that they need in terms of what core competencies for 21st century research really should be.
I guess 2 things were accomplished yesterday. One was the first day of the workshop. One was sort of introducing everybody to what everybody else was doing, which I think, given the breadth of the people in the room, was very useful. Just that meet and greet, that sort of networking was really useful for figuring out who to go talk to after the workshop's over. And the other thing that was a little more depressing was we went through a litany of things that had not worked.
It was interesting to start to hear about people's successes and failures trying out these different approaches, whether it's trying to teach a certain group R, which is now being heavily used in certain disciplines and in the ecological sciences, others that are looking at means of assessment, which is a really, really hard point for online learning in general. How do you measure the stickiness of one of these skills training courses so that someone that leaves a training, whether it's 2 days, whether it's a week, whether it's a semester, so that in 2 months, 6 months, a year, how do you start to see if they are really carrying that work forward, or if they're giving back to the system as becoming an instructor. So there were a number of assessment professionals that came in outside of the biological sciences that were lending their expertise to a number of different programs here, which was really influential and really beneficial for us to have that exposure.
Yesterday we sort of went through, we found common ground, explored the common ground, and then today we have spent much more time coming up with ways to travel together from that common ground to do new things.
In the past 18 months, we have run workshops for mathematicians, cosmologists, geophysicists, climate scientists, psycholinguists, neurobiologists, watershed ecologists, paleontologists, marine biologists. I could keep going. And we often have a mix of those disciplines in the room at the same time, because underneath those silos, there's a common layer of basic software skills. Now, the further you go into the science, the more specialized the software becomes. But at a basic level, it's like driving a car. If all you want to do is, get from here to school and back, you put in your key, you turn your key, you put it in gear, right? It's only when you're up at the level of Formula One racing or IndyCar racing that you actually have to know a lot about the innards of the car. We're at that basic family car level, and that cuts right across the disciplines.
So a great resource to start, which outlines a lot of the problems that we're tackling here, is the Software Carpentry website, which is software-carpentry.org. The Mozilla Science Lab, we're in the process of creating our website, but you can find us on Twitter at Mozilla Science, which links you to a number of other resources. And then Titus Brown, his personal blog, which is, I believe, ivory.ideal.org, has the actual proposal which led to the funding of this on his blog there. So you can start to look at those resources. So there's a number of different things that are interspersed, but probably following through the Software Carpentry website and also through Twitter to see our notes and also the conversation over the last few days is the best means to move forward. The hashtag that's been collecting all of this on Twitter as well is W2TBAC, which is what to teach biologists about computing.